My assistant Taylor is going to tell you about a fun new crafting genre that she recently got into and has been doing a ton of. And I know very little about it, but according to her, it's very easy and very fun. And I'm going to let her take it from here.
Okay, so today we are going to talk about quilling, and I'll show you some of the basic quilling shapes and how to make some interesting quilling art very simply. So I bought quilling paper, but you can make your own quilling paper. It's basically just thin strips of paper that are anywhere from 15 to 18 inches long. But I bought it like this, and they come in all different kinds of widths. This is, I don't know, a little bit more than 1/4 of an inch, but this is the thickest pack that came with mine. The thinnest one is about half this size, and mine came with 4 different packs. Got it on Amazon. It was very, very cheap. And then the other thing you need for quilling is a quilling tool. So if Matt can zoom in a little bit, you see this, it's not just a metal piece right here. There's a slit in the middle, and that's where your paper will go in, and that's how you're able to spin it around. So quilling is basically just spinning paper and laying paper on its edge into interesting and nice designs. So this is the first thing that I made from quilling. It took me no time at all. I also made this shadow box out of a dollar store frame, so we're going to show you how to do both of those things today. Alright, so we can start with just some basic quilling shapes. So I'm going to pick what might film best, which maybe is this bright yellow. Okay, so to start, you take your paper and you slip it in that slit that's in your quilling tool. Now, some quilling tools have deeper slits, or they might have a fatter base. My set came with pretty much all the same tool. So you see this paper sits a little proud of that metal part, but other paper is even smaller. And then you basically just start twirling. And how you position your fingers is all dependent on what feels best to you. Don't go fast. Slower is better because you want it to look perfect. And you just spin for the whole paper. And then you just slide it off. And this is called a tight circle, I believe. And what you want to do now is, let me take my glue. So this is just regular glue that I put into a needle nose bottle, which is very, very useful. You don't need it. The first couple days I hadn't gotten my bottles yet, so I was just using a regular glue bottle. Works just fine, but this is very nice for the precision. And so to make a tight circle, you just glue it right here. And you don't need much glue at all. And then just press it down, hold it for a minute, and then you can use the flat end of your tool to roll it down, make sure that seam is nice and tight. And that's it. That is a tight circle. So one trick that I learned in my quilling so far is, especially when you're using the needle nose bottle, it's great to have a little container with a sponge or a dishcloth that's really wet, and you can just store it upside down. That way the glue doesn't dry in your needle, which it will do, and the glue is always at the top ready for you to use it, so you don't have to keep squeezing and getting some out. So that's a nice little trick I learned from all of the great professionals and YouTubers out there who I've been watching over the past couple days. All right, so the next shape we'll do is a loose circle. So it's basically the same thing as a tight circle, but we spin it. And you want to make sure that you're keeping it straight. You don't want to make a tornado or a cone where it comes out. You want everything to line up flush. All right, and you take it off. And now we're just going to let it open up a little bit. So there are certain, sorry, I'm forgetting the word right now. Stencils. There are certain stencils out there where you can put your circle in, and that way you get the same size open circle every time. I didn't buy those stencils, so I've just been using coins, which works really well for me. If you're only making a couple circles to place around, it doesn't matter that they're of uniform shape, but if you're making something like this with the flower petals, you want to try your best to make sure that they're all the same size so that when you put them together, you don't have one giant wonky petal sticking out all weird. So I've been using coins to do my best. So I'm going to line this paper up with this coin. That's good for me. And then take my glue, put again just a little bit, press it down with my finger, and then I take my tool and I flatten it out. And this is called a loose circle. So now we can keep this like this, or we can turn it into another shape, which is called a teardrop. So I like to do a teardrop, I like to pull my circle down to the bottom, and then what I'm going to make my point is where my seam is. In here right now I have extra strong glue, which I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of for this right now because it's not letting my seams lay flat. When I was using just regular white glue, not extra strong formula, my seams laid a little flatter, so I think I'm gonna go back to that glue. Save the extra strong glue for when I'm doing designs on the paper and I just lay the paper on edge. So anyway, back to a teardrop. I'm gonna pull my circle down here right where my seam is. I'm gonna pull it to a point and getting at least a couple of the layers, but not the whole circle in there because I still want to have the spiral shape, but get some of the teardrops in there. And that is a teardrop. So I have searched far and wide on Google to see if everyone's teardrops slant. Because as you can see, the points aren't lining up perfectly in the middle, like that, how I would want them to, because I'm a perfectionist. They slant. Every YouTuber I watched, every example video I watched, they all slanted too. In here, I fixed that by taking some glue and gluing all of my points together. So if you see in here, you don't see any layers that are just points because I glued them all together because the slant kind of bothered me. But I find peace only in perfection. So if you are one of the people who likes wackiness or things to not be symmetrical and perfect, maybe it wouldn't bother you as much as me. But anyway, that is a teardrop. All right, we can go on to another shape. So the next one is like a teardrop. It goes by a couple different names. I think all of these shapes really go by a couple different names. But the one now, it's kind of like a double teardrop. Some people call it an eye and some people call it a marquise. So we start the same way, always by spinning. And sometimes what I like to do is give it an extra little spin right there. Not only does it make your inner circle tight, but that last little bit, it curls it, as opposed to leaving, if Matt can zoom in, and you can see right in here how there's that flat part. That's where the paper was in my tool. I don't like that. That bothers me. So if you spin it out real tight, you get a bit more of a spiral in there, and it's nicer. Anyway, so back to our new shape, the marquise or the eye. So again, I'm going to line it up with this quarter, unravel it a little bit to make it as big as the quarter. For the marquise, you kind of, or the eye, you kind of want it to be a little bit bigger to give you some more movement and get some more flex in there. I'm going to take my bottle, glue it down and hold it tight for a minute. Sometimes when I know I'm making a bunch of shapes of the same kind, like if I'm making a bunch of teardrops, I'll make this relaxed circle and then make like 6 of them and really give that glue a little bit of extra time to dry. Not that it really needs it, but I'm a worrywart as well as a perfectionist. All right, so now for the eye. It's like the teardrop, except we're going to make points on both sides. So you're going to try to keep your circle in the center. And then at the same time, don't do one side and then the other side because it'll never end up being symmetrical. But at the same time, you just pinch both sides. And that's that. Again, it goes by a couple different names, the marquise or the eye or double teardrop. All right, and then the last shape I'll show you is one that I have not really perfected so well, so this is going to be a bit of an experiment, but it's the diamond, which can also be made into a square just by a little bit of a variation. But we'll see how I do at it today. So, same thing as always. Now we're going to open it up. I'm going to make it a bit bigger this time to give me some space to work with because I'm going to be making a diamond, so it's 4 points. So it's bigger than the quarter, which is great. Now I'm going to glue it, as always. Make sure my glue bottle stays upside down because it will dry if I leave it upright. Take my tool, flatten out that edge. All right, and so now, keep the circle in the middle as best I can. I'm going to make a marquise. So sometimes it's better if you're on like not such a slick surface. I've been making a lot of these shapes on my thigh because the friction with my pants helps to keep the circle in the center. But we'll do our best here. So we make this, maybe not pulling it quite as tight as I did the first time. And then we take these and pull them. That way too. And there we go. A star. Maybe it's a little uneven, looking a little bit more like a cross, but tried my best. All right. So now there's a couple variations on these shapes too that you can do. So there's a curved teardrop, where you can do, or it's like a tilted teardrop, I'm not sure what it's called, where it's like a little bit, do a little bit in there. And then you could also use your tool, this one's a little bigger, and roll it this way to make it really exaggerated. You know, take your time with it and make it nice and smooth. Do a better job than I just did there. And then with this, you can also twist this. You can twist it the same way, and then pull this up. That's called like a duck foot. You could move the circle to the top or the bottom a little bit and do a crescent shape. But my favorite thing to do with this marquee is to twist one way and one the other way. Give yourself a cool little S shape. So these are some basic quilling shapes. You can use these shapes and variations of these shapes to create so many things. Just Google image search quilling and you will see. You can also take a strand and really just curl part of it and then glue it on the paper on its edge like this. You know, when I say glue it on its edge, a lot of people will like make a circle such as this, and then with your glue, draw a circle on your paper, and then just hold the paper like that. That's what this extra strong glue or maybe some tacky glue is good for. I find the regular school glue is best for gluing these pieces. And then with this circle, you could fill it with all these kinds of different shapes and make, you know, a nice circle or planet or something, whatever you want. So here's some of the ones that I've just been messing with over the past couple days. I've been binging some TV and just sitting on the couch and twirling. As you see, it's very, very easy, very, very fun. So you can use these these are the teardrops to make different flowers. This flower is the same as the one that I have in here. And this is what it looks like when I didn't glue all the points together, how it just looks a little bit wilder, a little bit wackier. Maybe somebody's into it. I am not. It bothers me, but maybe I'm a little bit too much of a perfectionist. You could also, so this is another tool that came with my kit. It's these curved tweezers. These are incredibly useful for not even just quilling, for so many different crafting projects, but in particular for quilling. So another variation on a flower is you can turn these this way and then put like a bigger circle inside there. That's a cute little flower. I also have these marquise right here that you can turn into a flower. I've been doing mostly flowers. I enjoy them. And put a little center on it. Then you could take a plain piece of green, lay it on its edge across the paper, and make a vine, placing flowers all along it wherever you want. Again, the possibilities are endless. Go ahead and do a Google search. So right now that you've seen some of the basic shapes and some of the things you can create with it, we will show you how to turn a dollar store frame into a cheap little shadow box. It's definitely dollar store quality, but suffices for its project and it's nice. So here's an example of one that I've made already. There's some finishings I could still do to it. I mitered the edges on this so that you didn't see the exposed foam core like you do on the back piece on the corners. However, I don't really like the way it looks on the inside, so I doubt I'm going to do that again. It looks better on the outside, but I really care about what it looks like on the inside. If I have a problem with the foam core exposed, I think I was just going to wrap it with a piece of ribbon all the way around, and then you wouldn't see it. And I still have the original back, which I can double-side tape to this so I can mount it to a wall or have it so that I can sit on a table. What I glued the quilling to is foam core, and then I glued that right to the sides of this. So this can't ever be taken apart again, but because it's a dollar store frame, I didn't think I'd ever reuse it for anything anyway, so I was okay with gluing it. You can, however, not glue it so that you would be able to remove this piece and put different art in there however you wanted. Okay, so here's my frame. I got from the dollar store, and here's the insert that goes in it. This is what I use as a guide to how big I can make my art. So when I made this, I used the insert in there to make sure that I wasn't making the art too big. And this is what I'm going to put inside this frame. First, we're going to make the sides of the frame, let it dry, then I'll show you how to attach the quilling to the back piece, and then we'll put it all together. So I'm just going to open this up. Oh, I need a pair of pliers. Okay, so with pliers, I'm just going to pull out these pieces. Now, if you wanted to make this frame reusable so that you could put any art in here again, I would save these pieces. They come out pretty easily. So now, my glass is free floating, so I'm going to quickly just clean both sides of it with some Windex. I'm going to clean it again too, but before we seal everything up. Alright, so now that the glass is clean, I'm actually going to glue it into this frame. So we're going to do that with hot glue. So you don't need a ton, and you want to make sure not to use a lot, because when you press your glass in there, you don't want it to ooze out over the side and be able to be seen in any way. So just a small amount will do it, and you want to be quick with it since it's hot glue and it dries very fast. I think it came out over here. All right. So now we gently place our glass in there and make sure it's all good. Pressing gently, again, not too hard because you don't want any excess glue to ooze out. All right, so now we're ready to make our, oh, I dropped some on the ground. So now we are ready to make the sides that will make it a shadow box. And so on this finished piece, we are making these pieces right here. So I pre-cut these a little bit just because I didn't feel like bringing a whole sheet of foam core into the shop today. So I pre-cut them 3/4 of an inch thick. May or may not have been a good call. We'll see. I did 3/4 of an inch thick here, so fingers crossed it'll work on this one. So if you were going to miter your edges, you were going to make all 4 of your pieces the exact length of all of your sides. But I'm not. I'm going to just connect them at 90-degree angles. So this first one, and I'm just going to mark it. It doesn't need to be, I mean, it will be perfect. And then with a straight edge, I'm just going to, sorry, let me get my cutting board. At home, I have a rubberized self-healing cutting board. If any of you crafters out there have not yet gotten your hands on one, it's a wonderful tool. But in the shop, whatever we have will work. I'm using a box cutter because the longer blade works better for me than a X-Acto knife. And I'm just gonna, well, that wasn't super clean. Could use a better knife, but it works. All right, and now go in there, make sure it's big enough. Great, fits great. And so I'm going to hot glue it. And again, I'm going to use very little glue, and I'm going to be very, very careful about how I place it, because when I turn this around, you can see the edge if you're not careful. So you don't want it to bleed over and be able to see it. So careful is key. So again, with my hot glue gun, and not that much hot glue at all, because it's just foam core. And then we place our piece in there. All right, and so when you press it in there, press firmly, and then with your fingernail, or I don't really have fingernails, but as best you can, press it and make sure that it's real tight in there. And now we're going to do our bottom piece, and again, just the exact same size. And I'm just going to eyeball it and mark it. Take a straight edge. And make sure it works. Hot glue it into place. Okie dokie. So now we're going to do our sides, and you see these are a little bit shorter. So we just line up here, and then again mark it in here. We'll do the other one in the same way. Cut them and glue them in place the same way we did these 2 pieces. Okay, so now that I have these sides on, I'm actually going to reinforce it where these 2 pieces meet on the outside, not on the inside, because if you do it on the inside, you can see it. So I'm really just going to let a dab of glue get on these corners. It's going to be a little bit ugly from the outside, but, you know, only the wall sees that, so I don't care. Just a little bit to hold it in there. Ooh, I think my hair got in there. And some over here. And all these little spider webbies I'm going to make sure to clean up before I glue the back piece on. All right, make sure all of those joints are nice and tight. Okay, so now most of the shadow box is done. You can see it has some depth to it. So now we will create our picture to go inside. So I was thinking about maybe we can make a tree, since I've already made some flowers. Hold on, pause it. Okay, so I'm going to cut the back piece for this. So I pre-cut it, but just eyeballing it, so it's not really... So I'm going to use as many factory edges as I can, and factory edges are the edges that the board comes with, because they are the straightest. So it looks like I did pretty good on this. I just need to trim the one side a little bit. I'm just going to score it where it needs to be trimmed, and then come with my ruler and cut the excess off. Okay, so now I'm going to take the picture that came with my frame, and I'm going to lay out my tree before I actually make it. So these are the pieces that I have. You can see they're all marquise or eyes, however you want to call it, in a couple different shades. And then I have some long twisted marquise or crooked marquise that I'm going to use to make the tree trunk. So let's start with the trunk. Not totally sure how I'm going to be putting this together yet. We'll trial and error. I'm going to take this one, actually. Sure. I like that. Make it a little straighter, maybe. That'll be our tree trunk. Maybe have some ground down here. Okay. Now we can add our leaves. And here, this is not the final product. We're just eyeballing it up to make sure that everything will fit, because when you glue, you don't really have the option to change it. So, yeah, starting with, I can use my fingers. Now I've used my tweezers and I've placed all of the pieces roughly where I want them, making sure that they fit inside something that I know is going to fit into the frame. And so now I'm ready to glue. So here's the piece that we cut that I'm going to be gluing onto. And then right here, I have a piece of cardboard that I've covered in packing tape. You could use anything that's a non-porous surface, like a credit card or an extra piece of glass or something like that. This is just what I made for the shop. And then now I'm just pouring some regular school glue on top of it. And then well, this glue should be mixed a little bit, but we're just going to smear it so that it's a nice thin coat for us to drop our pieces into. Okie dokie. So now I'll start with my trunk. I'm going to take this piece and you just drop it in the glue, tamp it down a little bit, very gently, and then pull it back up. If ever you pull it up and your coil is stuck, that's okay. Just be gentle as possible and you'll be able to recoil it. And you can see I got a bit of glue there. Now I'm just going to place that. And then just so I remember, I'm going to place these two here before I glue anything else. Just press down with your finger. And here you can really get creative with the shapes that you make. So I'm going to press these two even tighter together. And as long as you're using a glue that doesn't take forever to dry, they'll keep the shape that you press them into. Now, for darker paper, you might want to use a glue that is a crystal clear glue. This white glue, even though it dries clear, on darker paper, you still do see it a little bit. So you might want to use a glue that starts off crystal clear. And then I have found that darker pieces of quilling do better on white background and lighter pieces do better on a darker background. So that's why I'm putting this tree on this white, because the brown didn't really show up and some of the red didn't really show up on a black background. Now, just gonna hold that in place for a little while it dries. And that's only because I'm trying to shape these pieces a little bit. The other ones I'm just going to lay down. Alright, cool. Okay, and so now you can see I have glued all of my pieces to the back of my shadow box. I decided to change the design up a little bit. If anybody noticed, they were previously all pointed. I decided to make it more of a circle. I kind of like it this way. It's all dependent on your personal aesthetic. That's one of the great things about quilling. It really gives you a lot of flexibility and creativity to do whatever you want on the piece. So now I'm going to do the final step, which is just glue this onto the shadow box that we made. So I am again going to clean the glass and make sure that I got all the spider webbies from my hot glue before I start. So now that our glass is really clean, and you want to make sure it's really clean because you're never going to have access to this space again, we are ready to glue this on. If your edges didn't come out so clean on the inside, or if your frame was very thin and so your foam core is thicker, I think a way to solve that is to just put some glue some cording or something like that here, some twine or anything like that that will just make a nice little edge, and it'll still look good from the outside. But this turned out fine, so we don't need anything there. So I'm going to, again, use my hot glue gun very, very lightly on my foam core because I don't want it to squeeze out and show anywhere. If my hot glue gun wants to work. There we go. Well, gonna get that spider web before I... Alright, everything's clean. I'm just going to press it in. And again, press lightly but not too firmly. You don't want to squeeze the glue onto the inside because you can't access that anymore. But you do want to make sure everything is attached. So you have to work quickly to make sure the hot glue doesn't dry. Alright, seems like all of my surfaces are attached. Flip it over. And there we go. That's the finished product. I think it looks adorable.